This isn't just about hits. This is about the moments when R&B and soul stopped playing it safe and started rewriting the rules. When Motown went electronic. When funk met disco and created something nobody saw coming. When artists pushed so hard the grooves themselves became legendary.
Cause you make my heart scream and holler. Love is a gamble and I'm...
Number 12, Real Love by Skyy. Skyy brought something dangerously honest to the table, a slow jam that acknowledged love's scars instead of pretending they don't exist. Real Love arrived in 1989 when New Jack Swing dominated radio, but the Brooklyn group refused to chase trends. Lush keyboards wrap around Denise Dunning's vocals as she encourages someone to risk their heart again despite past pain.
Because of all the hurt in my past, I tend to shy away from emotional commitments.
The production breathes with space and warmth, letting every word land. Notice how the arrangement swells during the chorus, then pulls back to intimate confession. The track spent a week at number 1 on the R&B charts in 1990, becoming Skyy's third chart topper and final crossover pop hit. After a decade in the business, they proved staying true to their sound could still win. Solomon Roberts wrote it specifically to capture that vulnerable moment when fear and possibility collide, when you know getting hurt is possible, but real connection demands the risk. This was late-night radio that sounded like honest conversation, the kind of track that played in cars parked outside houses where people sat working up courage for one more try.
I couldn't walk away even if I wanted to. So baby...
From that tender vulnerability, we're diving into calculated swagger. Number 11, Save the Overtime, For Me, by Gladys Knight and the Pips. Gladys Knight and the Pips delivered a masterclass in soulful boogie. Save the Overtime became their first number 1 R&B single in 8 years when it hit the top in 1983. The gap between chart toppers made this victory sweeter. Leon Silvers III crafted a groove that merged classic Pips elegance with contemporary funk punch. The rhythm section locks into a relentless pocket, while Gladys commands attention with effortless authority. Catch how the horn stabs punctuate each verse, adding urgency without overwhelming. The single peaked at 66 on the Hot 100, but owned the R&B charts completely. The accompanying video became one of the earliest R&B clips to incorporate hip-hop culture, showing the group's awareness of where music was heading. The Pips recorded this during their Columbia Records era, proving their Motown polish translated perfectly to the decade's evolving sound. They weren't chasing youth, they were showing how veterans do it. This was office party music that made everyone forget about Monday morning. The kind of track that turned work stress into dance floor release before the clock even struck 5. While they kept it sophisticated, the next artist stripped everything down to raw desperation. Number 10, Don't Leave Me This Way, by Thelma Houston. Thelma Houston took a Philadelphia International ballad and transformed it into disco's most desperate plea. Don't Leave Me This Way hit number 1 in 1977 after Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes recorded the original. Here's the twist. The track was initially assigned to Diana Ross. Producer Hal Davis used the same studio and many of the same musicians he'd employed on Ross's Love Hangover, creating that familiar Motown meets disco magic. Houston's vocal runs through pure need, each note begging without losing dignity. When the strings sweep in, they don't decorate. They elevate the urgency. The single topped 3 charts: pop, R&B, and disco. Houston won the Grammy for Best R&B Vocal Performance Female. In the UK, her version battled Melvin's original simultaneously. With his peaking higher, but hers becoming the lasting version. Art Wright's guitar arrangement became the track's backbone, those crystalline notes cutting through the orchestration like searchlights through smoke. This was dance floor catharsis that made you move and feel simultaneously. Late-night club music that sounded like emotional survival, dressed in platform heels and strobe lights. From that polished desperation to Chicago soul at its most elegant. Number 9, The Makings of You by Curtis Mayfield. Curtis Mayfield built The Makings of You from honeysuckle poetry and profound philosophy in 1970. Wait for it, using love for one person as a mirror for love of all humanity. This wasn't just romance. It was revolution, dressed in sweetness. His falsetto floats over gentle instrumentation that feels like Saturday morning sunlight. The arrangement breathes with space, letting each word of devotion expand into something larger. Notice how the strings rise and fall like natural conversation, never forcing the emotion. The track appeared on his debut solo album, Curtis, which topped R&B album charts as Mayfield established himself beyond the Impressions. He'd moved from gospel-influenced soul into something more personal, yet equally conscious. Mayfield wrote every note, arranged every part, connecting intimate affection to communal care, without ever making the connection obvious. The song's been covered countless times, because that depth keeps revealing new layers. This was morning radio that made you think while you smiled. The kind of track that played in households where music meant more than background. Where lyrics sparked conversations. Feeling this? Drop your favorite so far. Let's see if we're on the same page. From Mayfield's gentle profundity, prepare for blaxploitation soundtrack fire. Number 8, Brother's Gonna Work It Out by Willie Hutch. Willie Hutch composed, arranged, produced, and performed the entire soundtrack to the Mac in 1973, including Brother's Gonna Work It Out, a groove that defined blaxploitation soul. Motown gave him complete creative control and an 18-piece string ensemble plus 8 horn players. The track moves with cinematic purpose, horns punching and strings sweeping, as Hutch's vocals carry equal parts confidence and tenderness. Every element serves the story, creating atmosphere that works with or without the film. The production gleams with layers that reward multiple listens. Quentin Tarantino later called the album the best movie soundtrack of all time, and this track exemplifies why. It balances raw funk energy with sophisticated arrangement without sacrificing. Either Hutch recorded everything at Motown Studios, building the score before the script was even finished. That freedom let him create pure mood rather than just illustrating scenes. This was car stereo music that made drives feel like personal movie moments. Soundtrack soul that worked equally well, cruising or standing still, letting bass notes rattle your chest. While Hutch painted cinematic landscapes, the next artist captured Motown's experimental edge. Number 7. Heavenly by The Temptations. The Temptations faced an unexpected obstacle when Heavenly dropped in 1974. A DJ boycott against Motown. A label executive's failure to thank radio programmers during an awards acceptance killed the song's airplay despite its undeniable quality. Richard Street and Damon Harris share lead vocals over Norman Whitfield's production, which balances message music with pure romantic balladry. The arrangement showcases Whitfield's willingness to let the Temps be tender after years of socially conscious funk. Listen for how the vocals interweave, creating conversation rather than just harmony. The track peaked at 43 pop, far below what the group expected. Critics and fans loved it. But radio silence meant casual listeners never discovered what could have been a massive hit. This came from the 1990 album, their final collaboration with Whitfield. The group wanted more ballads after years of his progressive funk, and this showed they could still deliver emotional depth. This was slow dance music for basement parties where the lights dimmed and couples stopped pretending distance mattered. Soul that wrapped around you like shared secrets. From Temptations' tenderness to British Soul's breakthrough moment. Number 6. Heaven Knows by Jackie Graham. Jackie Graham's Heaven Knows introduced British soul to wider audiences in 1985, the title track from her debut album. Graham signed to EMI after a talent scout caught her session work with Medium Wave Band, and Derek Bramble crafted a sound that merged UK sophistication with American R&B fire. The production pulses with mid-80s energy, high-tech without losing warmth, polished without becoming sterile. Graham's vocals command attention, moving from intimate verses to powerful chorus declarations. Notice the synthesizer textures that date the recording, while the songwriting transcends era. The single reached number 59 in the UK, but the album's success established Graham as a major force. Her duet with David Grant on Could It Be I'm Falling in Love had already hit number 5, but this solo statement proved she didn't need collaboration to shine. The track showcased Bramble's production vision, creating space for Graham's voice while building contemporary excitement around traditional soul values. It worked across radio formats. This was sophistication for the dance floor. British soul that proved Birmingham could match Detroit's legacy while charting its own course. The comments are already going wild. Jump in and share your pick. While Graham represented British soul's future, the next group showed Motown finding new directions. Number 5, Love Machine by The Miracles. The Miracles without Smokey Robinson seemed impossible until Love Machine proved otherwise in 1975. Billy Griffin and Pete Moore wrote this disco-funk robot romance that spent 28 weeks on the charts and hit number 1. Their biggest selling single ever, Bobby Rogers growls through the track, while Griffin's falsetto sweetens the mechanical metaphors. The 7-minute original got split for radio, but that extended version lets the groove fully develop. Freddie Perren's production captures disco's dawn perfectly. Still funky, newly electronic, completely infectious. The track was initially written for an all-girl group that Motown dropped before recording. The Miracles kept it for themselves and watched it become their first number 1 since Tears of a Clown 5 years earlier. The song generated over $15 million in revenues and remains Motown's most used track in licensing. Those finger snaps and that bass line became synonymous with late 70s joy. This was dance floor absurdity that worked because everyone committed completely. Disco music that invited you to embrace the ridiculous premise and just move from disco's mechanical joy to its most joyful soundtrack anthem. Number 4, Car Wash by Rose Royce. Norman Whitfield needed a soundtrack for the Mac. Wait, wrong film. Car Wash gave Rose Royce their debut single and biggest hit in 1976, an instant number 1 that sold 2 million copies and defined feel-good disco funk. Those hand claps at the intro became instantly recognizable, sampled endlessly by hip-hop producers decades later. Gwen Dickey's lead vocals balance playful energy with serious vocal chops, while the band, assembled by Whitfield specifically for this project, locks into a groove so tight it sounds like one instrument. The single topped both pop and R&B charts, peaking at number 3 on disco charts. The soundtrack album went gold and won a Grammy for Best Score. Rose Royce proved they were more than session players. They were stars. Whitfield discovered them touring Europe behind Edwin Starr. He recognized their chemistry immediately, building the entire soundtrack around their sound before most of the cast was even hired. This was working-class celebration music, funk that made minimum wage feel like maximum joy, the soundtrack to getting through the day with dignity and dance moves intact. If that was pure celebration, prepare for sophistication elevated to art form. Number 3, Never Too Much by Luther Vandross.
Of my list 'cause I'm always thinking of you. I still remember.
Luther Vandross announced his arrival with Never Too Much in 1981. His debut single, his debut album, instant #1 R&B status.
A million days in your arms.
After years as a session singer and jingle vocalist, Vandross controlled every aspect: writing, producing, arranging.
Called you up, but you weren't there, and I was broken hearted. Hung up the
Singing Marcus Miller's bass line drives the entire track, infectious and undeniable.
This is only the beginning of my love.
Vandross layers his vocals to create a one-man choir, harmonizing with himself in ways that showcase ridiculous technical skill made to sound effortless.
A thousand kisses from you is near.
The horns punch, the strings sweep, the rhythm section refuses to let up.
A thousand kisses.
The single hit #1 R&B and climbed to number 33 pop, introducing mainstream America to a voice they'd been hearing uncredited for years.
I'm so glad that I am winning. We've come a long way, and yet this.
The album reached number 19 pop. Remarkable for a debut Vandross had sung backup for everyone from David Bowie to Roberta Flack. Here he proved he didn't need to share spotlights. His voice was the complete package, capable of carrying entire productions alone.
And to my surprise, there you were standing. Who needs to go to?
This was summer barbecue music that made family gatherings feel like celebrations. Uptown soul that worked equally well at block parties and formal affairs.
Pardon, you told me to come and oh my.
Now that you've made it this far, the intensity only escalates. Number 2, Billie Jean by Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson shattered barriers with Billie Jean in 1983, the track that made MTV finally feature black artists in heavy rotation. He composed it while driving, so absorbed he didn't notice his car catching fire until a motorcyclist alerted him. That bass line is immortal, 4 notes that define pop perfection. The drums snap with electronic precision, while Jackson's vocals move from vulnerable verses to defiant chorus declarations. Quincy Jones wanted to cut the 29-second intro. Jackson insisted it stayed because it made him want to dance. The single spent 7 weeks at #1, won 2 Grammys, broke color barriers, and introduced the moonwalk during the Motown 25 performance. Jackson's status transformed from child star to undisputed king of pop. Bruce Sweetian mixed it 91 times. Jackson recorded vocals through a 6-foot tube in one take. Every element was obsessed over, perfected, refined, until nothing remained except pure, forward momentum. This was Revolution, dressed in sequined gloves. The track that made the entire industry recalculate what was possible when artistry met ambition. If you thought that was powerful, wait until you hear what happens when sophistication meets pure funk joy. Number 1, Let's Groove by Earth, Wind and Fire. Earth, Wind & Fire brought vocoder futurism to Let's Groove in 1981, proving disco's spirit could survive the backlash dressed in funk clothes and electronic dreams. Maurice White and Wayne Vaughn created this during disco's supposed death, and it became their 7th and final top 10 pop hit. The vocoder introduces robotic warmth, a paradox that shouldn't work but becomes hypnotic instantly. The horn section screams like celebration incarnate while the bass line refuses to stay in one place, moving through the track with restless energy. Notice the layers. Every listen reveals new details buried in the mix. The single hit number 3, pop number 1 R&B for 8 weeks, sold over 1 million copies, went gold, then platinum. It dominated late 1981 and early 1982. Proving reports of disco's death were premature. The groove just evolved. White co-wrote it with Emotions member Wanda Vaughn's husband Wayne. The song rejected the emerging hip-hop sound and the dying disco trend simultaneously, creating something that existed in its own joyful timeline. This was pure kinetic energy, translated to vinyl. The sound of a band at their creative and commercial peak, refusing to acknowledge limitations. Music that made standing still feel like wasting precious seconds.